Thank you for joining the Dougherty County Board of Commissioners Commission meeting. Your Dougherty County Board of Commissioners is chaired by Christopher Cohelis. Your Dougherty County Commissioners include, from District 1, Lamar Hudgens. From District 2, Victor Edwards. From District 3, Clinton Johnson. From District 4, Russell Gray. From District 5, Gloria Gaines. And from District 6, Anthony Jones. We are also joined by County Administrator Michael McCoy, Assistant County Administrator Scott Addison, County Clerk Juwan Ware, and County Attorney Spencer Lee. This is your Dougherty County Board of Commissioners Commission meeting.
All right, good morning, everyone.
Morning.
That's right. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
All right.
Good morning. Good morning.
Go ahead and call to order the Dougherty County Commission regular meeting for August 31st, 2020. We're going to start with the roll call. We'll start with those that are present in person. Commissioner Hudgens.
Here.
Commissioner Edwards.
Here.
Commissioner Gray.
Here.
Commissioner Johnson.
Here.
Commissioner Jones.
Present.
Commissioner Gaines.
I'm here.
All right, very good. The Madam Clerk will note that all are present and accounted for. And if everyone could please stand for the prayer and then the pledge. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this time that we have to come together to do work for the citizens of Dougherty County. Thank you for the resources that you have provided us with. Thank you for the help that you've provided us with and the faith that you've given us during these uncertain times. Thank you for leading us on a path that has allowed us to become a happier, healthier, and safer community. And let us please continue to embrace those collaborative decisions that we can make that will best make this community one that reflects the wishes of you and your Son, Jesus. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Chairman, before you start, this is Spencer. I'm having trouble hearing you. I don't have trouble hearing anybody calling in, but I don't know whether anybody else is having that problem.
Okay.
I'm having the same problem, Attorney.
All right. Very good. Let me try and, if you give me 1 second, Spencer.
That's better now.
All right. Perfect.
Yeah, that's better.
I think the problem was I wasn't speaking directly into the microphone. My apologies. All right. We'll move on with the action items. Consider for action the August 3rd regular meeting, August 10th work session, August 10th public hearing minutes. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? There being none, we'll call the matter for a vote. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Delegations, this is where the commission will hear comments to those items pertaining to Dougherty County for which a public hearing has not been held or scheduled. We ask everyone to be brief, to the point, and considerate of time for others. And our first delegation is Chief Cedric Scott and Dr. Philip Kuhl, Vice President and Chief Medical Officer at Augusta University Health, who are present to update the commission on the proposed antibody testing in the community. I'm very thankful to hear this presentation, and I'm going to turn things over to Chief Scott first, and I'm assuming he's on the phone.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, can you hear me?
I can. Good morning, Chief.
Okay, great. Joined this morning by Dr. Philip Kuhl, the medical director for Augusta University, and I will not spend or take the time of the commission this morning in explaining this process. Again, I want to get to right to Dr. Kuhl, but as you know, the commission approved this partnership with Augusta University, the Dougherty County School System, and of course the City of Albany to to conduct antibody testing in our community. And what I would like to do now is turn right to Dr. Cool for some opening remarks, and then have an opportunity to answer any questions that the commission may have this morning. Dr. Cool?
Thank you, Chief. Dr. Philip Cool, I'm the Vice President, Chief Medical Officer of the Augusta University Health System, and we are very pleased about this opportunity to partner with the City of Albany, Dougherty County, and the school board system. We previously had some ill-defined components for how we would do an analysis to ensure that we had an adequate representation of the area, to make sure that it was represented appropriately for each of the areas. Subsequent to the initial approval, we have revamped and revised our proposal to include a modified approach that would allow us to leverage any of the tests that are performed in the Dougherty school system, as they are going to be doing antibody testing for all of their staff, but still include those in the zip code analysis that we would do for the area, acknowledging that some of the persons that are tested by the school system may not reside within the area code, the zip codes that we're going to be analyzing. We have, however, done a more detailed analysis of the population, including the zip codes that should be included in the documents that are provided to you. That would include the zip codes 31701, 04, 05, 07, and 21. And we estimate that population, based on the estimated population for 2020, to be 97,940. We've done an analysis of that population, and including the age ranges, gender, and race and ethnicity of those areas. Our approach would be to recruit and cap the participation by zip code so that it would be representation of that particular population, to allow for others in other zip codes to be able to get into the study. Using that approach, and then also combining that with any of the data obtained from the Dougherty school system, we would couple those together and provide an analysis of the total number of people that were tested that resided in the local areas, as well as do a separate subset analysis for those for the Dougherty school system to help inform their decision making. So we believe that this is a very sound approach to make sure that we get a good representation across the community to be able to draw conclusions from that. And I'll be glad to entertain any questions that you may have.
Okay, any comments or questions for Dr. Cool?
Just one question, Dr. Cool. This is Commissioner Russell Gray. When you're talking about testing school-age children, is that going to span private schools, charter schools, and public schools within those zip codes?
When I say we're going to provide testing for the Board of Education, it's for the Board of Education staff.
Okay.
All right.
Dr. Cool, Commissioner Jones,
Yes, sir.
when is the target date for starting this up?
We are looking to start sometime within the next week or two, I believe, and the rest of my team is on the line that can get us details about the time if I'm wrong, or correct me, but I believe, I want to say, if memory serves, it's the 14th of September.
Yes, this is Jennifer Miller with Augusta University Health System, and we will be in Albany setting up on September 14th and 15th, and we will begin testing on September 16th. We have a group that Chief Scott has helped put together to brainstorm and work on marketing and communication. And so we plan to start our communication publicly about this on September 9th, about a week ahead of when testing will begin.
Yes, this is Gloria Gaines.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm curious if, I know that if you're going to test the staff of the Board of Education, it may or may not be random. but you're going to test the general public as well, right?
Correct. So the breakdown.
Is that
would be-
random?
It would be those that volunteer.
Okay.
But then we would cap the participation in the study by a breakdown to get a representative from each of the zip codes, a certain number of representatives.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, so you would use the data randomly, but you may not capture it. You may not.
Right. So we would seek participants, but we would stop accepting people enrolling from, for example, 31701 after we reach the targeted population of 241 from that particular zip code. And that target for each of those zip codes is based on the percentage of the population that lives in that particular area.
And tell me once, please remind me, as briefly as you can, if you're looking for proportionalities or what? I mean, you're just going to, anyone who volunteers, whether or not they have, is there a prerequisite? Do they have, must they have had or suspect that they have had COVID, or just want to participate?
No, just want to participate and just want to get an antibody test and willing to participate would be the only prerequisites.
Okay.
And then we actually, because of some very strict rules around how we have to do this, they would be offered the test and then asked to provide additional information as part of the study that would give us additional information about if they thought they had COVID or if they had documented case of COVID, et cetera.
So what do you expect to show as a result of this study?
Well, I think this study will be important for a couple of reasons. One, you may have seen some studies that suggest that there is a waning of antibodies over time. This will be an interesting study in terms of, particularly because of the high prevalence of COVID in the community previously. It will allow us to look at that in a longer term than many places have the opportunity to see if those people that, for example, had COVID back early in the pandemic, if they still have those antibodies at a sufficient level. And then additionally, it will allow us to see what the seroprevalence is amongst the community that perhaps never had any symptoms and never had a documented case of COVID and no documented exposure or no clinical illness. So I think it will be very useful for that regard as well.
So you have hypotheses that you're going to try to prove. Huh?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I don't recall them. Would you send them, please, again?
Yeah, so we the research study cannot be distributed or advertised until it's approved by the Institutional Review Board. So the research study design, once approved, then that can be distributed, because otherwise it's considered advertisement for the study.
Okay.
But we'll be glad to distribute that when it's approved by the IRB.
Okay, thank you.
Dr.
Mr. Cool.
Go ahead.
Commissioner Jones
Go ahead,
again.
Commissioner Jones.
You said the announcement date is going to be September 9th. Startup date is September the 14th. Okay, from September the 14th until when and where are the testing sites going to be?
And this is Jennifer Miller. I'll jump in. We're going to be there setting up September 14th and 15th, but testing will actually start on September 16th. So just wanted to clarify that because we will need a little bit of time to set up all of our phlebotomy stations and things like that. And the location will be in the Thornton Community Center, in the gym.
You're only going to have one location?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you'll be there until when?
We will be there for we're going to be there for 10 days. We will be operating Monday through Friday, so we will not be testing on the weekends. However, we are going to be offering early morning hours and also evening hours throughout the week so that those that might be working during the day are still able to get a test. So we will have some different hours throughout that 10 days to try and capture, to be as convenient as we can to anybody that wants the test.
Thank you.
Dr. Cool, one follow-up question. I recognize that the city, the county, the school system have purchased a finite number of tests to be administered. Is there also the capacity for additional testing to be done for those folks that present with health insurance?
There is capacity to do that. We'll need to, I haven't discussed that with the team, and I don't think we have a detailed plan for doing that, but there's certainly the capacity to be able to do that.
I just was curious if we could drive a higher sample size that obviously, you know, we've expended public dollars on providing a certain number of antibody tests, but if we could actually drive additional numbers through folks that actually have health insurance, wouldn't that increase the, I guess, the efficacy or the validity or the quality of the overall sample size?
Well, one, if we were to do something like that, we would need to develop a plan that would extend beyond the number of days that we have available, just because we, from a capacity standpoint, we know how long it takes to do each of these, and we schedule them, et cetera. Additionally, there's some payer issues that would need to be worked out in regards to not all insurances are, for example, covered in our plan, et cetera. In terms of sample size, I know that we've talked about sample size in the past. Because of the way that the school system program is being constructed, we expect that total, by the time this is all done, if we assume that all of the school system employees live in the area, we'll actually have about 3,200 participants in the study, and we expect that that will certainly inform that we can draw a lot of conclusions from a sample size that large.
A question, please. Are there other communities undergoing the same or a similar study at this time?
Yeah, there are none that I'm aware of in Georgia, with the exception of the CDC conducted study in DeKalb County. New York, as you know, has done similar studies. Right. We did a similar study in Augusta, or actually in Columbia County, which was very revealing in terms of how the disease has affected the community, and some of the outcomes from that study are very interesting. So there are. Is
that available?
I'm sorry?
Is that study available?
Yeah, the full study has not yet been published, but the preliminary data from that is available, and we can send that to you. I thought we had sent that previously, but we can send that again.
Thank you.
So is there a cost associated with this, or maybe I missed that?
Is there a cost associated with doing the test?
Yes.
Yes, there is a cost associated with doing the test, and it's kind of interesting. Some insurance companies actually won't pay for it, despite the fact that they're supposed to. And I think that's the reason that the stipulation was made to go ahead and pay for a certain number of tests. The agreement that's been reached is that we would be compensated for $80 per test, including the collection fee and the personnel and all of that.
Okay, I understand what you're saying there, but what is the actual cost that each individual will pay? You're not worried about too much about what you're going to be paying, but what will each individual have to pay to get this test? And here's another concern that I have. The people who really need the test and don't have insurance, where do they stack up in this deal? And a lot of them are affected, so how are you going to reach them?
Commissioner Jones.
Yeah, so the agreement that's been reached is that, I'm sorry.
Dr. Cool, can you hold on for a moment? Is Mr. McCoy on, please?
Yes, I am. Commissioner Jones.
Mr. McCoy will probably be better to explain that, but the commission has already approved the participation, and I believe that the shared cost and that Mr. McCoy can certainly jump in. I believe it was estimated to be at $54,000 per entity. Is that not correct, Mr. McCoy?
Yes, that is correct.
And there's no cost to the
Okay.
participants.
There's
So-
no cost.
Yes, so the participants in the study will not be paying there will be no charge to the citizens who call and register. They will call and register and participate. There will be no cost to those who present themselves for testing. That has already been agreed to in a previous meeting.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. I'm sorry, Dr. Cool. Please continue.
That's okay. No, thank you for explaining that better than I would have.
All right. Anything further? Well, this is all very good information. Dr. Cool, we again thank you and Augusta University for your partnership on this project, and we're very thankful for the expertise that you and your staff have provided us with. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we'll turn to Barbara Rivera Holmes, President and CEO of the Albany Area Chamber of Commerce, who's present to update the Commission on the new Stronger Together campaign. Good morning. Yeah,
Good morning, everyone. How are you?
very good.
Good. I'm glad to be here before you to talk about a new initiative. It's chamber-led, but really a collaborative initiative between so many entities in our community. And as you can see on the screen, it's called Stronger Together ABY. And the mission of this initiative is really to increase engagement and participation in the safety guidelines that we know help stop the spread of the virus, and increase the access to business resources that are in place, all with the ultimate goal of protecting our community and also reigniting our economy in a sustainable way. And so Stronger Together ABY, I think, says a lot about who we are as a community. We know that we're better together, we're stronger together. We've been through a lot together, and we get through it together. But this is also regional in scope because we are the center of commerce and education and so many things for our community. So what we have done is take a couple of things that we were already doing in terms of types of access to business resources, safety guidelines, participation, and wrap them up into a program that is cohesive and that really does facilitate and accelerate the things that we're going after. And so you can see from our screen that it's the premise is a business promise. And so we do ask our businesses to make sure that they're wearing the face masks, following the guidelines, that they're training their staff on those safety guidelines. And on the back end, we provide businesses with those resources. And so through this promise, we expand our efforts to provide businesses with face masks, with hand sanitizers, and with free access to the Unified Standards training platform that has been so successful. If you recall, we launched here in Dougherty County a few months back a pilot of the Unified Standards training for restaurants, and it was successful, and it really did help our restaurant hospitality community come back stronger at that time, and that process is ongoing. That was because of your support. And because of that support, Unified Standards has now been able to expand statewide with the 17 business sectors that are listed in the governor's guidelines. Those 17 business sectors, of course, impact every business in Dougherty County. And so Blake Cook and Tracy Good with the levy and with Unified Standards are here to tell you more about that program. But Stronger Together ABY, again, is really about engaging our public to do what's right, and then engaging our businesses with the resources that they need to be able to accelerate this process. So we're very proud of it. It's, as I said, it's chamber-led, but it's really ignited through a very robust network of collaborators, the City of Albany, Dougherty County, many public and other private corporations, and you can see those as you scroll down on this list, and this is growing, that we've really looked comprehensively at bringing everybody on board because we all have the same goal: health and a robust economy. And so we're very proud of a Stronger Together ABY because of what it represents for our community and what it represents going forward for our community. And before I turn it over to Blake, who's going to come and talk about the Unified Standards component, which again is the training for workforce. And we know that the guidelines can be out there, but if we're not proactive and if we're not constant in training our workforce on how to implement those guidelines, then we're not nearly as successful. And so the Unified Standards platform really takes that training for businesses to that next level so that they can have confidence in what they're implementing, and also so that the public can have confidence in our businesses and we can reestablish that consumer confidence that we know is so important for our economy. Blake, you want to talk about Unified Standards?
Good morning. Thank you all for having us. Just to give a little bit of background as to where we are, Tracy Good, my business partner, and I, pre-COVID, we had built a LMS platform for workforce, video-based workforce training, and just to get companies back on their feet. And so COVID hit, and back in April, Tracy and I decided to basically take a part of this platform and turn it into a COVID-19 training center, a virtual COVID-19 training center. And we really just did this in our own community because we saw that our own restaurants and such were hit so hard. Our city was hit so hard by the pandemic itself. So the governor mandated guidelines when they came out. He started off in the restaurant sector. And so we created a virtual tour basically of those guidelines for restaurants. So through your participation in helping us spread the word and get this out there, we were able to get this in restaurants. And we believe that we've seen some very, very positive feedback. Well, since then, the governor has come out with 17 different business sectors. And you can see here, you may not be able to see this on the Zoom call, but someone logs into the platform itself. It takes seconds to log in. There's 17 industry sectors here in both English and Spanish where someone could go in and validate that they have gone through whatever the current guidelines are. You know, our mission is really threefold. Number one, we want safety for our employees in our workplace. We want safety for our patrons that walk in the workplace. Number two is consumer confidence, and we want to gain that consumer confidence through that safety, those safety measures. And then number three really is something that we didn't foresee, which was how many versions of these guidelines come out and how much do we expect these business owners to actually have to train every single employee on those as they come in. I mean, you can imagine the new training comes in on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and every time you have a new employee, you're expected to share those new guidelines as to what they are. So we're actually being able to take the weight off of the shoulders of the owners and managers of these companies to just send them through this portal. It takes 10, 15 minutes to get caught up on what those new guidelines are. Since then, we have worked together with Superintendent Woods to create K-12 education. We've created an entire portal for Albany State because they had a robust guideline, which was in written format that we've been able to add to our portal. And now we are working with public safety across the state and law enforcement. So when there is a call that is received, currently as we kind of probed into the issue to see, you know, what are officers actually looking at when they go in to give a citation or they get a call from a restaurant or a retail store, and there is no unified standard across the board. So a law enforcement officer can have this on their iPad or their iPhone, walk into a restaurant and see what the current guidelines are today. And these things change every 2 to 3 weeks. So we've been able not only spread now across the state, but across the nation. The last few weeks we've been on calls with Ohio, Hawaii, Minnesota, and other places that are very interested not only in this platform, but what Barbara's presented here in the Stronger Together campaign. So number one, I just want to tell you guys thank you for your participation in this to help lead the way across the nation for this pandemic. And number two, to help us spread the word for what's going on here in the Stronger Together campaign. So thank you for your time.
It's fantastic and great. I mean, great update, and thankful that this sort of cutting edge technology came from our small hometown here in Albany. Because, I mean, this is being used across the state, and is it also going across the country and the world as well?
Oh, yeah. So it's definitely going across the country. We're looking at talking to Spain next week, a few other locations, but we really wanted to get across really our region. You know, it's very important that we kind of, you know, protect the areas that are around us just like we would locally. We want this to spread to other counties and, you know, that surround us. So we want to kind of surround our states and then go beyond that.
I think this is a great example, and I want to thank our chamber president for integrating this into the business community's response to COVID-19 and the large number of businesses that have made masks mandatory and that have embraced unified standards, not necessarily just in terms of y'all as a business entity, but just in terms of standardizing the response. Has been very pronounced in this community, and it's always been my experience that if you can get people to voluntarily do what is right, it's always better than mandating that they do something. And it's been my experience or my observation in comparison to many other communities in the state and across the country. We've got a very high level of compliance within our business community in terms of exercising best practices. And so I just wanted to acknowledge Ms. Rivera-Holmes and thank you as well, Mr. Cook, and we appreciate the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I've got a note here. We've got some additional folks that asked to be placed on the agenda for purposes of speaking about some issues relating to the Elections Board. And Mr. Lee, are you on?
I am, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, if you could just, and I understand we have Mr. Florence, Mr. Pratt, and Mrs. Faruqi, who are all here to speak on some issues that touch on some matters that I understand that are handled by the Elections Board, but I want to make sure that we're being as responsive as possible, and we want to make sure that we're making the most of your time. And if you could, Mr. Lee, can you sort of delineate for everybody what is the scope of the authority that the Elections Board has versus what the Board of Commissioners have? Because I want to make sure that I always want to make sure we manage expectations properly, and if we're the right place for y'all to be, then that's great, and if we're not the right place for y'all to be, then I want to make sure that we get you in front of the right place where you can best be heard, because I really believe that citizens should be heard on the concerns that they have. Mr. Lee?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Talking about the Election Board, I'll quite frankly give you a little background. It brings up some fond and not so fond memories to me. I served on it for about a bunch of years as a Democrat nominee, and during that time I was serving, we had recounts. We were sued a number of times, and we had to withstand a grand jury investigation. So I applaud those people that have served in the past on the Election Board and the ones that are serving now. It's a very difficult thing to do. It's a very important position, appointed position every time we have an election. But just to go back a little bit and bring the commission up to date on the structure of the Election Board, you might already know, so if you'll bear with me for a few minutes, by local legislation, the Albany-Daugherty County Board of Registration of Elections was established for both the city and the county. It is a joint board of elections. And of course, I think as you know, the superintendent of elections is the joint board acting as a host. The joint board becomes the superintendent. And the supervisor of the election is hired by the county administrator. And the county supervisor is to administer the board of elections, and that's Ginger Nickerson. So that's sort of the structure. The local legislation provides that one member shall be appointed. There's a 5-member board. One member shall be appointed by the Democrat Party of Daugherty County, another member by the Republican Party of Daugherty County, one member by the City Commission, one member by the County Commission, and then those 4 members shall appoint the 5th member for a 5-member board. Now, this Board of Elections is governed by the state election laws under the election code. They don't have any. They're an autonomous board, just like the hospital authority. The hospital authority, of course, is an autonomous board. You make the appointments to the hospital authorities, but they act under the hospital authority's law. It's the same as the tax assessors board. You make the appointment to the board of tax assessors, but they operate under the revenue code. The registration and election board operates under the election board. In the past, what has happened when people would want to speak to, or talk about, or in some way inform any one of those boards about issues that they might have, the proper reference was to send them to that board, to give them the names of the board members, whether it be the tax assessors board, whether it be the hospital authority board, or whether it be the election board, and tell them that here are the times that they meet, and they meet under the open meetings law, and you can request and be given an opportunity to present whatever you would like to present to the board. The commission has no responsibility. The board for the board's actions. They are an autonomous board. They can sue and they can be sued. So all three of those boards, and they have been sued in the past, all three of them. So they can be sued or they can sue. So our relationship is one of letting them do their business and referring whoever has information for the board or needs information from the board to the board. Now, of course, I can't say that the Board of Commissioners can't hear from whoever they want to hear from for whatever reason they want to do it. But the normal process is to forward them to the board and to let the board respond, let these boards respond back to the persons making the presentation with whatever information they need to send back to them.
Sure.
That's briefly it, Mr. Chairman. Again, they're all three the same.
Sure, and thank you for that explanation. And Mr. Lee, can you? I heard you say that the elections board is an autonomous board. Can you explain what that means in terms of whether or not this commission has any legal authority or ability to dictate decisions, policy decisions, or operational decisions made by that board?
Well, that's exactly what autonomous means. They act according to state law, and quite frankly, as I said in the past, even talking about the hospital authority, talking about when I talk about the Board of Tax Assessors, and people would approach individual commissioners about it, I've always said that we don't need to be interfering in the business of the board because they are autonomous. Again, they can sue and be sued, and it's their responsibility under law, and we shouldn't interfere with that responsibility. Now, again, we should always be mindful of the needs of the citizens and make certain that they go to the right place and they're given the right information and they are heard. But beyond that, the boards function in an autonomous manner, and we should not interfere with their day-to-day duties
No doubt.
and the decisions that they make.
And that makes sense, especially since we're a political body, and if we were to interfere, we could certainly be accused of tampering with election results or how elections are being managed, and obviously that's not the intent of the law. But very good information, and thank you for providing that.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Gaines?
One comment. Mr. Lee, could we say that we can sum up our relationship or our responsibility to that board in 2 words, and that is, number 1, to appoint, and number 2, to fund?
That's correct.
Yes.
Thanks.
A very, very good point. All right. Well, I think that's all very good information, and irrespective of that, we're going to make sure we hear from everybody. But I did want to make sure, because I got late notice that we had citizens that wanted to talk about these issues coming on the agenda, and so I wanted to make sure that we had that truthful and honest information for y'all to manage your expectations on what we can or cannot do. But irrespective of that, Ms. Faruqi, would you like to speak first? Or does do y'all wish to speak, or who wants to speak? We're going to hear from whoever wants to speak. I just wanted to manage those expectations. Did you want to talk, ma'am? I've got Mr. Florence, Mr. Pratt, Ms. Faruqi, and I can take you. I just believe in ladies first, so I thought that was the right way to proceed.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for having us here. And we thank you for putting us on the agenda and hearing our concerns. And thank you to Mr. Lee for outlining
Yes.
the responsibilities of the board and the distinction between the Board of Elections, the Board of Commissioners, and the election supervisor. We are here because we were actually directed by the Board of Elections. We came to them first to present our concerns. I'm speaking on behalf of an election protection coalition, which is comprised of a lot of organizations here in Southwest Georgia and across the state of Georgia. We came to them with concerns about making it easier and more accessible to vote in this time of pandemic and partnering with them to increase turnout, because we know that it's been an issue in Daugherty County in the past. We're recruiting poll workers because we know that that's a shortage the county is experiencing. So we want to help them market dates and make sure people have information about absentee ballots. How do you fill out the application correctly? How do you turn it in? And we're really happy to support the work that they're doing to get the information out. A specific request that we made to the board was about having drop boxes available to make it easier for folks from our organizations and also from across the community who are reaching out to us, who are hearing the news about the Postal Service, are still, recovering from the pandemic and still understand that we're in COVID-19 and don't feel comfortable going out to precincts to vote in person. A lot of organizations right now are encouraging vote by mail because it's the safest way, it's the best way to be an informed voter because you have the ballot in front of you, you can research, you can fill it out. Because of issues with the Postal Service and also just for convenience, we asked the Elections Board if it would be possible to do a drop box at every public library so that depending on where you are in Albany and Daugherty County, you can go drop off your absentee ballot and you know that it will get to the elections office. So because it was a financial request, that's why they directed us here to the County Commission. And like Commissioner Gaines said, I think we understand the purpose is to appoint and to fund, and so we wanted to update you on our request because we understand that it would require additional funding. And so we know that there is CARES Act money that potentially can go to drop boxes. There's grants. I believe the Secretary of State just opened a grant for drop boxes. There's other organizations that are willing to put money into it. But we think that this is a priority just from the number of elderly people in this community who are longtime voters, regular voters who feel more comfortable with a drop box than necessarily going to vote in person at a precinct. So that's why we're here, and I'll let the other speakers, go more into detail. I want to be respectful of time, but that's the main purpose of why we're here today. And we're going to keep working with Ms. Ginger and the Board of Elections, on all of the other things. But because there's a financial component, that's why we've come to you today. And I believe we sent a letter around that you should have all received, and if not, we'll follow up and make sure that you have paper copies too. But yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you. All right, Mr. Florence. Good to see you, as always.
How everybody doing?
Very good.
You want to thank your Mr. Ware for going through all our mail and make sure that we actually came to speak today in front of the commission. And I want to thank Mike McCoy for my first time talking to him. And it seemed like it was so easy to make that first drop box work. And now it seems like getting some red tape now because of the different entities involved. But now we do need 4 more drop boxes ASAP because of the elderly and because that one drop box, we had an incident where it got full. And the person came into the drop box, couldn't put it in because it was already full. And that's one of our purposes of being here, to get other drop boxes that.
Mr. Florence, did you say the drop box that we have became full?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We have
that's the one that's here.
One
right?
here,
And
right.
Mr. McCoy, am I correct in saying that you have to have 24-hour surveillance on that in order to make sure that, and I'm not an elections guru, but I've stayed at a Holiday Inn once, and am I correct in saying that you have to have, in order to preserve the sanctity of the process, you have to have 24-hour video surveillance on the box? Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and so we're capable of leveraging that here at this location?
Yes, we installed a standalone security system. If you exit this building and look up to your right, you'll see the camera.
So like we literally had to put in a separate security system just for that box, is that right?
That is correct.
Okay, and so and I'm asking this question to educate myself, and it's not a decision that we make, it's a decision that would come from the elections board. If it requested that, it would necessarily be funding for separate security systems across the community, and then would you also need security and then you'd have to get the library board, and is that right?
Yes, the library board would be involved in the decision, as that is a.
Mr. Chairman, may I interrupt a second?
Yes,
Has the joint board, the superintendent, requested any additional funding or requested that this commission take any action on anything?
No, that's why I'm sort of, to my knowledge, no.
Those requests will
Well,
come
I
to
mean,
me, and they have not requested additional drop boxes.
Okay. But I wanted to talk through that for a second, Mr. Florence. So y'all are requesting from the elections board 4 additional drop boxes, is
Yes,
that right?
yes.
Okay, gotcha,
We're in each location.
Understood.
South, east, north, and west side.
understood.
And I understand that the camera system, I think we read a letter from the state board that the ongoing camera system that's already located at that entity would be sufficient instead of adding a whole new camera system. They have said that on their website.
Okay. You probably know more about it than I do.
I've been doing a study. Also,
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Mr. Chair, this is Gloria. I cannot hear Mr. Florence. Can you repeat his point?
Yes, yes, Commissioner Gaines. Mr. Florence was stating that he believed on the information that he's received that there were security systems at these proposed locations that would suffice to meet whatever state requirements there are. And he indicated, did I state that correctly,
That's correct.
Mr. Florence? So that's the information that he's gathered.
I think, and just reflecting back, I think the requirement was it had to have video surveillance 24 hours a day. But I think the issue we found logistically was not every camera was pointed at an angle where we could actually see the interaction with the box. And so that's why we put an additional camera, so we could see that interface, much like an ATM. You don't want to see somebody's back.
Yeah, what happens if somebody comes and, this is what I was thinking, because I worry about things like this. You just talked about ATM, and I remember the days, and it still happens, where guys will throw a brick through the window, pull the truck up, and yank it out the front door. And if you don't think somebody would do that to votes in order to remove a bunch of votes, I would not be surprised. But that's just one of the things I would worry about. But if you have surveillance on it, obviously that helps prevent that.
Sure.
Especially as you sort of talk through those issues. So, but your information is that there are 4 other locations that have video surveillance that is sufficient. And Mr. McCoy, can we pass that information back to Ms. Nickerson and see what her recommendations are as well?
Absolutely, and I would like to clarify, Ms. Nickerson requested funding for the initial drop box.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I may add a point. Since we were copied on both the letter sent by the citizens and Ms. Nickerson's response, I'd just like to say that I was a little disappointed with the response. There were some specific asks of the citizens, and it would have been wonderful if those specific asks were addressed by the board.
And Commissioner, I think maybe if you would, Mike McCoy is probably hearing this since he's the county administrator, maybe he could relay that information back to the whole board and to the supervisor.
Thank you.
That would be good. All right, thank you. If our technical people could possibly turn that down a little bit, that would be great. All right.
So can I say if Mr. Michael McCoy requests back to January, and the funding coming from this commission, that's her proposed for the drop boxes. So I don't want to go back and forth because we've got a short time span here.
I think what we need is, because we got to make sure that we don't put ourselves in a position that frankly exposes us to an accusation that we're doing something that we're not supposed to. I think we need a response from the elections board on these specific requests, whether they approve or deny those requests. And if they approve them, then they'll make a request to us for funding. If they deny them, then y'all have obviously a dispute or a disagreement with the elections board, but then you have an answer. And so then, your remedies, so to speak, are A, you sue the elections board, or B, you pursue a political process and you lobby the county commission when next time it goes around, or the city commission, for people to be appointed for different appointments. And did I state that correctly, Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
For information, Fulton County has 20 drop boxes, and all of them been installed since the primary.
Fulton County does?
20 drop boxes. Gwinnett County has 8, and they've been installed since the primary. So other counties seeing the issue that we don't need to get to in Dougherty County. And even a little small county, Bartow County, has 5 drop boxes. Cobb County has 4, and Richmond County has 4. So they are going around as the need.
It's a trend, is what you're saying. I understand.
So it's nothing that we are trying to get out in front of, but it's something that we think our constituents
That's good
need.
information.
Yes, sir.
That's very good information.
All right.
All right. Thank you very much. As always, Ms. Florence, it's good to see you.
Thank you.
Mr. Pratt, did you want to be heard?
Yes, please.
Good morning. How are you doing, Mr. Pratt?
I'm doing all right. How about yourself?
Very good, thank you.
All right. So I'm going to cover some of the things that has already been covered and add a little more context. Just want to clarify a couple things. So no, the cameras do not have to record 24 hours. It can also be stop motion frame by frame according to the new emergency law. And there's several other Georgia code things that talks about the county's ability to purchase, including 21-2-320 discusses county and municipalities purchasing machines. 21-2-327 talks about people and hiring. There's several other codes that talk about the municipalities funding and support of other kind of elections, materials, and all the funding. So there is the information and legal standard to suggest that the county does provide the funding. While we understand that you want to hear the recommendation by the Board of Elections, we're not necessarily interested in that recommendation because we're trying to get and facilitate the city and the county to be proactive and be on the vanguard of creating these opportunities for the citizens to vote. Mr. Florence suggested 4 boxes. We want 7 in each of the local libraries. And so while we understand that there is an infrastructural need, there is a funding need for all of these things, we're asking that the county be proactive and facilitate those actions. I'm kind of confident that with legal advice that you won't overstep your bounds if you are on the vanguard and make that communication with Ms. Nickerson in order to purchase these items, provide the structural support, and provide the needed manpower. Give these college students an opportunity to work at these polling stations, to create an infrastructure that will continue beyond 2020 and create Albany, again, being on that vanguard of elections. And so those are some of the asks. We understand that the county has participated in advertising, and we understand that there is a unique reporting structure as it concerns the elections board. And we also understand, again, that there's a need for surveillance, there's a need to have these cameras, there's a need to have these lock boxes. And so we're asking you to be a part of the creative solutions and not continually pass the buck as we're seeing in process now. And we, as Omna has set the ground for, this is for the elderly. This is for folks that are fearful of going out, people that require these types of boxes.
Mr. Pratt, I wanted to ask you a question about that because I was curious. And I understand, you're very, very persuasive.
Sure.
And obviously you've studied this extensively, and you're speaking about codes that I've never read before, so
Sure.
I apologize for my ignorance.
Sure.
One of the concerns I've heard is that this would provide a sort of a safer way for people to sort of transmit their votes.
Certainly.
Am I hearing that correctly?
Certainly.
So now, are drop boxes on the inside or the outside, Mr. McCoy?
Exterior of the building.
On the exterior of the building, okay. The locations that have been proposed, are y'all proposing that the drop box be on the inside or the outside?
Wherever the county or the commission deems most fit. You can use the drop boxes for books, given that they follow the standards of the law where the material can't be taken out of the boxes or what have you. And so we're inside, outside, but using those public facilities doesn't require a certain extra amount of funds, so it's an efficient and effective way to use those.
I was curious because, and I've watched the trend. I mean, our community's elections board has expanded early voting, and we do. I know we had a problem finding poll workers because of the COVID-19 crisis, and I applaud and appreciate all the partnership in terms of finding poll workers. And I know that Ms. Bird, who is here behind that mask, I have worked with her before on voter registration drives before.
We're losing you, Mr. Chairman.
I can't hear you, Mr. Lee.
You got to speak into it.
Sorry. I was just curious if they're going to be inside, does that present a safer environment than just going and voting in person?
It could possibly. I think the question is, or the core thing that we're after is proliferation of opportunities. So whether inside or outside, I think that's a case for where Ms. Nickerson's recommendations does come in, where the commissions come together, both city and county, in order to make that decision. But we just simply want the commitment to boxes.
So the reason why I'm asking this question is because I'm trying to sort of splice words and concerns. Is this more about COVID-19, or is this more about just providing infrastructural opportunities to create additional ways to turn in your vote in a more convenient way, irrespective of COVID-19?
So I don't think.
Or is it a blend of the two?
I don't think they're inseparable. I think they relate to each other. We have to be cognizant of the historical moment and the conditions of the day, but we also have to be cognizant of how elections have been here historically as well. And to add to all of this, one of my suggestions as well, and I've presented this to the City Commission, is the county and the city must come together to create Elections Day as a holiday, because we know what holidays do. We know people coalesce around holidays. MLK Day, people go out and serve. Christmas, people go out and serve and buy a lot of stuff. And so creating Elections Day holiday along with these drop boxes creates the cultural environment, the structural environment, and again, sets Albany on the vanguard of really being the leader in elections and ensuring that everybody's participating. Oftentimes we hear these board talks about there's a lack of participation, and so we have to create the context that enhance and kind of motivate participation.
Understand. Very good presentation. Mr. McCoy, do you have a recommendation? Obviously, I know we're limited to what we can do, but I want to also make sure we're being responsive to our citizens and their concerns. Is it appropriate, and Mr. Lee, you weigh in as well, is it most appropriate for you to have a conversation with Ms. Nickerson to see sort of where they stand and report back to this commission by the next meeting?
Yes, I will relay the information presented to Ms. Nickerson and ask that the Board of Elections responds to these requests.
Okay. And Commissioner Edwards, did you have something?
Yes, sir. One thing I guess I would just like piggyback on the total conversation, but one thing I found out just a few minutes ago, that if we don't need an individual camera, at first I think we had the information where you had to have an individual camera set up for every site. So then I think that cost was at that time, if you had to have an individual system, we were talking about between $4 grand. So if you're talking about 6 sites, that was like $30,000. That was really my biggest concern. And if I went that way, I wanted, going back to what you're saying, I wanted the city to come in and participate financially.
Certainly.
Now, in light of that, the other concern that I had, I really didn't want to, as one commissioner, jump over my election board. I would kind of piggyback on what Commissioner Gaines said. I was really looking for some recommendations to come from the board. Now, in retrospect, that did not happen.
It hasn't.
Now, another thing, I guess, Mr. Chairman, that every afternoon, that my understanding that we have to pick up the ballots, right?
24
So
hours.
that means if we had, when you say 7, I said 6. I say 6 because we have what, 7 libraries? And we have, how many library locations we have?
7 and then this one here.
Okay, so
But a
we got-
bonus one
yeah,
would
so
hurt.
that'd be 7. So if you did 6, that means every afternoon is at the time that
Uh,
that person
just-
have to go by and pick up those ballots?
From my understanding, it's 24 hours in the new emergency law, but I can verify that.
So they just use a scenario. 7 o'clock, that means somebody got to get in the truck.
Yes, sir.
And go pick those up and bring them down.
Certainly.
Do we have to count them? And I guess these questions should be forwarded to Ms. Ginger. Should we count them, or do they sit till tomorrow or whatever?
Does she have the staff to be able to support it?
Yeah.
And this is part of why we're here, because we presented these recommendations to her, and that has been the response: no staff, no funding. And so we've had that conversation, and she's even reached out to me as a college professor to try to get some staff for her. So all we're asking now is for the funding and the support for those very things, to create a precedent around elections, understanding that while this is a budget increase, this is something that we have to pay for. It's a necessary and important one in this moment.
See, I guess and I'm going back again, I guess I was really looking forward to some recommendations from the board, because.
They won't give you any.
Yeah, but see, if I sit on the board, there's no need for us to have that board. I mean, that's
That
kind
may
of
be
how I look
right.
at it. So I don't know whether, I would like to hear from our chairperson of that particular board to give us some recommendations. Because if that's the case for me, I don't need the board. Okay? And going back to what I said earlier, I was looking for a little bit more direction. So I guess I am stuck where do we play that role? Like right now, do we make that decision for next week on those drop boxes? But then again, we jumping over them guys, and I guess
Well, the
that's
county
kinda where my
can-
thought
the
is.
county can
I'm
resolve-
not against the boxing.
Sure.
I can see the boxing. I don't have no problem with the boxing. Now, for me, the boxing should be outside.
Sure.
If you said in your letter that people's afraid, well, good gracious, they're afraid to come here, they're afraid to go over there, but that's
Sure.
not my thing. If you want the boxes, but I would like to see my other fellow commissioner, help with the participation of the funding.
Sure.
With those boxes.
Well, the county can lead the way in resolve today to support funding for these things, given the need, and anticipate after communication with the elections board to put that in action. But you all can lead the way. We can compel the city by you all leading the way. And so that's a demonstration of, again, being on the vanguard and not being afraid to take the risk. It's not even a risk, it's something that supports.
It's not necessarily being afraid at all. It's again, we have people that's in place.
Certainly.
And I want those people to rise to the occasion. Now, I guess for me, if I sat on that board also, I wouldn't want, because it might be a new territory that they sent you to us, but again, they have that authority. Sure. And I guess I want that board to step up to the plate and say, these are the recommendations, and then we look at it. But my biggest concern is, I know we're dealing with dates and time.
Yes.
You see, I want it to happen. If it's gonna happen, we need to know where those dates are.
Right.
The other thing, I guess, what was your input on helping hire the poll workers?
What do you mean?
When I think that was Ms. Amana was saying, you have a plan in assisting us with poll workers being hired to work?
Certainly.
So what's your suggestions? Have y'all talked to Ginger about what role you would like to participate? For instance, what I'm saying.
Definitely.
Are you saying, look, Ginger, I'm gonna bring you 10 people?
So
Are you saying, is Sawega Rising saying, I'm gonna bring you 5 people? If you're saying we need to man the place for 200 people, and when I saw the letter, the lady only had 72 people.
Sure.
So again, some of this stuff, we do have, whether y'all like it or not, black voters apathy. People participating, whether it's black or white.
Sure.
So again, I don't want that monkey to be all on my back. People got to get up, do what they need to do, And again, one of those things about that letter was, if people quit and don't want to work, they don't want to work. Now, what is our solution to that, to overcome that?
So I can answer your question in several ways. So this group has been working with the Panhellenic Council and several other groups in order to do the work. And again, as a college professor, I advertise in my classes, hey, you can get a job doing this, a temporary job, just as I've done with the census, just what I've done with other events. And we know that we can get people to coalesce and be hired. Of course, there will be attrition, people will fall off, but the goal is, with your support, we can do what we need to do in this county. And I think we've communicated that with the Board of Commissions, Ms. Nickerson, and have been doing the groundwork in order to, again, get the manpower. But without the funding and support of this board, the city board, and eventually the elections board, our work can, in fact, be in vain.
I appreciate all the comments, and I agree with Commissioner Edwards. We have to, and I respect and I understand the argument. I think you made very persuasive, good arguments, but I do think we have to follow the letter of the law in terms of we've got to get a request that identifies in terms of their operational budget, like if that's what the elections board deems that it needs or wants.
Mr. Chairman, may I make a comment?
Hold on 1 second, please. Let me get this thought out. 1 second. I'll call on you 1 second, Commissioner Jones. Just let me get this out real quick. I think we need to know from their perspective, because they're charged with the operations, what is the cost, whether or not this is feasible, and whether or not it's consistent with, that board's vision for increasing voter participation. I understand all the arguments. I get it. I completely do, but I think we have to get that information. Mr. McCoy, did you have any additional information?
No, sir.
Okay, Commissioner Jones?
Yeah, I've been just kind of sitting here listening to the argument here and the presentations here. Here's where I am. I'm in favor of getting as many people out to vote as we possibly can. So what I'm trying to say here is that, we don't want to get ahead of the election board, and I think the attorney explained to us how the election board works. So I think what the rest of our citizens, what they're asking, I still think we need to go back to Ms. Nickerson under the directions of Mr. McCoy to let them talk with her again and find out what the recommendations are, what are the needs, and if we can meet the needs, and if the needs can be met, and hopefully they can be met, and then we need to petition the city with the funding. The city, this is the Albany-Dougherty County election, which is which is the presidential election, and which is a big and important election. So if there's a cost share, and I read the other day that there are some grants funded there to help offset this thing from the Secretary of State's office, we need to apply and find out how do we apply for those grants for these boxes. I read that the other day. And then after we find out, first we have to find out a cost. What does it cost to put 4 or 5 boxes and make sure the areas are secure and safe after we come back? Because we have to have a budget before we can start anything. We can conversate all the time, but we need a budget. Once you get a budget, then you can find out what we need, how many boxes we need, what the cost is. Can we get the grants? According to the Secretary of State's office, the deadline is looming close. So you need to find out and do that research, compare it, and then if you get those grants, if you get $100, if you need $500, then you subtract 75 from the 500. Then you look and find out what that cost is. And then if the election board, they have to make that decision because they're in charge. I mean, we appointed the board, and this thing is going to have to go back to the election board for them to bring it forward to us before we can act. Otherwise, we are getting ahead of we're putting the cart before the horse. Then we find out that if we need $500 to make sure we get these drop boxes, if the election board says that we can have these 5 boxes, they'll come and let us know. And then what we need to do, if it costs $500, then $250 from the city, $250 from the county, because it's a city and a county-wide. The election is going to cover the city and the county. So then we split the difference. If the election board approves it, it's got to go back to the election board and be brought to us Then the attorney has already said that we've been sued before. So we don't want to be sued again for putting the cart before the horse, and that's what I mean by that, is jumping before the election board. It has to come from the election board to direct us whether we're going to need 4 more boxes or 3 more boxes. That's where it's got to come from.
Mr. Chair, one final comment from me. I just want to say that as a citizen of Dougherty County, I was terribly disappointed in the response to my fellow citizens from our elections officials. They asked specifically, and the response should have been whether or not each one of those items they asked for was legal, whether it was logistical, and whether it was cost prohibitive. And that's the kind of simple information they were asking for. And then we could respond. We can't, like Commissioner Jones said, we cannot get out in front of them. But they have the responsibility to respond specifically to our citizens.
So I think with that said, Commissioner Gaines, the election board needs to revisit those concerns from those citizens
And do it post-haste. And do it post-haste.
I agree with you on that.
And I concur with what Commissioner Gaines saying, that she could have done better with the letter. And I mean, so I'm yielding to you, Mr. Chairman, but I think she needed to answer the letter. The board needed to answer the letter.
Can we do this? Mr. McCoy, can you draft a letter for my signature that requests of the elections board a comprehensive response to each of the line items, approved, denied, and as to each issue, so that we can understand what the response or the recommendation.
Mr. Chairman, I can't hear you.
I asked Mr. McCoy to draft a letter for my signature on behalf of the board, if we have consensus on behalf of the board, requesting the elections board to provide a comprehensive response to the requests that were outlined, yes, no, by each line item. And then that will permit this conversation to move forward in an orderly fashion. Is there consensus on that issue?
Yes, I'm okay with that.
Yes, except I think we need to say to do it because we have a specific amount of time in order to act on some of these things. So ask, if you would, put a date by which we expect a response.
Yeah, and I guess, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, thank you, Commissioner Gaines. I will ask Professor, like those drop boxes here, I don't know the exact rule, but at one time I was reading where it should have been 60 days out or 30 days out. So do you have that?
30 days out of installing them?
Right.
I'm not completely sure, but on this point of timing, I would say the caveat to add is a week response or even 3 days or turnaround on these, given the pressure and the time.
I think this is easy. We get a response. I mean, at the end of the day, you're talking about a guy. If they go in and they have the staff and they commit into security and they make that recommendation, and I don't know the answers to any of those questions. That's why I try not to overstate expectations. But at the end of the day, it takes a guy with a DeWalt drill and a couple screws to screw it into the side of a wall if that's going to go in. Now, there's a lot of other stuff that may go in operationally, but I mean, it's not like we're installing the Statue of Liberty if that is what is installed. We're talking about a metal box. So, that's just sort of my perspective. Mr. McCoy, if you would please, and I want to make sure the letter is worded diplomatically because I'm conscientious that we have a lot of good people that serve on that board. Certainly. And the city and the county appoint those folks. I don't want it to come off as dictatorial. I want it to request, please provide a written response, and please do it within a 7-day time period. I think that's reasonable. And make sure that the response that we get is then transmitted to each of the citizens that is present here today, and that will provide an answer. Does that sound reasonable, my friend?
Almost. So, so again, I think the caveat of putting a timeline on it is essential. I think noting that and also resolving to support.
So it doesn't sound reasonable to you?
Not yet, almost. So I think the additions that I mentioned, a timeline that compels a shorter time span given the time that we have, and again, I lost my second point, but that's the main one.
Okay, all right.
Well,
Vice
Mr. Chairman, let me
Okay.
add something if I might.
Yes, sir.
Of course, you can't order them around to do anything,
I agree
as
with
you
that,
well
certainly.
know. And I know we're not doing that, but and I do think it is urgent that if they're going to respond back, that they do it in time frame. But they obviously have to meet as a board to make those kinds of decisions. So I think you might want to be just, you might want to, instead of telling them a different date, you might just want to say,
Well, we're having to request it anyways. I think we could request it within, a reasonable time period, and we would request that they convene to provide a response. And it may be that these are answers that could be provided at the staff level. I don't know the answer to that. And if they can't respond,
no, I
they
don't.
can't
The
respond.
answers can't be at a staff level. The superintendent is the board of elections, and she's the administrator. Ginger's the administrator. They have to make a decision as to how to run the election and the equipment they need, and an overall plan to run the election, and see whether or not some of these things will fit in their overall plan and should be done. And then they make a request, of course, by the full board up there. They vote on them and make a request of the commission. And now, I'm not trying to give them the benefit of the doubt, but Ms. Nicholson's letter back says your suggestions will be taken under advisement. Now, and of course that means under advisement could mean for the next 2 years under advisement, or it could mean the next week, or it can mean the next 10 days. And as everybody knows, there's an urgency to this, because any requests that are made from them to the county commission have to be handled by the county commission and then placed into effect. So there is a time element involved, but I'd be careful in saying, give it to me on a day certain.
Can we do this? I'm trying to get consensus. Mr. Lee and Mr. McCoy, can y'all draft a recommended letter that takes into account the time sensitivity and also blends with it understanding that we need to be diplomatic. We're making a request. Obviously, we are a political body that appoints the member, or at least half of the members, or 40% of the members of that board. We would make this formal request. We would ask them to convene to provide a more precise response, and then we'll go from there. Okay? All right. I consider this matter closed.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, one other thing before you move forward, if I may say so. Mr. Pratt, who's one of my former 4-H club members, and Mr. Florence, I would like to say to you guys, I would like to say to you and our citizens, we are together, numbers are great. But let me tell you, we have 28 polling sites that need to be filled. And I really hope that you guys will put the drive into recruiting and making sure that we can have all 28 of those precincts open. And the reason why I say this is because of the fact that a lot of the people are not going to be able to come to those drop boxes, but a lot of people can walk to the polls to vote. So I would like for you all to put a lot of emphasis on getting volunteers to help the election office staff those 28 precincts, so that on election day they can be open and functional. Otherwise, we're not going to get everybody to vote, because if I'm voting at Kentucky Fried Chicken on Oglethorpe and that Kentucky Fried Chicken is closed, I'm not probably going to try to get to the one in East Albany or South Albany or out on Dawson Road. So it's important to have these precincts open. So if you guys will make sure that we have warm bodies in all those precincts, I certainly would appreciate you on behalf of District 6.
And thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner. I hear you, and I'm going to push back to you all that today you all can resolve to make Election Day a holiday so people can celebrate and coalesce around these things and feel motivated to support these polls and to be a part of this political action. So that's something that you all can do. It doesn't seem like you're going to take action on that, but I hope that you do explore that as the president has been set both in Georgia and other states and in different countries. So I feel like you can do it. Again, be on the vanguard, and I hope to hear some beautiful action after this.
Very good. Thank you. Certainly. All right. Very good. Good debate. And I want to thank all of our speakers for yes, Mr. Florence.
I gave the county administrator a letter from that board, asking this board to react. His letter's already been printed and ready, it came from that board. He can read it there precisely, asking for funding.
I'm not following something. There's a letter from who?
From the Board of Elections.
I thought we just said that there wasn't a letter from the Board of Elections.
Yeah, I don't know. You gave me a sheet of paper. It doesn't state where it came from.
Okay.
I don't know.
All right, we'll take that matter up. Thank you, Mr. Florence, for providing that information. Thank you all. Thank you for your presentation. It was very professional, very well done. Thank you very much. We're going to,
Excuse me, Mr. Dick.
yes, sir.
Commissioner Demetrius, did you want it to, or Ms. Sherrill?
Okay. All right.
I mean, we didn't want to overlook it, because we come over there, we don't want you to.
Well, no, I didn't plan to say anything today, but thank you for recognizing me, Commissioner. I just wanted to say to you all, the city does have this on their agenda as well. I, for myself, had always had the understanding that it was the specific purview of the county to handle elections. So I'm here actually in my capacity as NAACP member to talk about these elections. But I have spoken with the city manager and put it on our agenda to talk about those things. So the city stands ready to contribute to solutions as well.
Okay.
All right. Very good. Thank you very much, Commissioner Young. All right.
Ms. Sherrill?
Have I lost everybody? No.
That's what I was wondering.
Spencer, you died and went to heaven.
Hold on. You asked for an audience.
Thank you,
with
Commissioner
the
Edwards.
chair.
Yes, I just want to let you know,
Which
we're following the
chair?
protocol. We've already sent our letter out formally to the Chair of the Elections Board,
Okay.
and we've not gotten a response from him at all. We've also sent out correspondence to, matter of fact, we started this process with Ginger, wanting to meet with her and Michael McCoy, and we've not gotten that opportunity. We were told to go to the Elections Board, which we did, and they sent us this direction. And so we just want to make sure you all know we're following protocol, we're here to support, and we're looking forward to a positive result. So thank you for the time today. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Did I miss anyone else? Okay. Thank you. And I'm sorry. Just so everyone knows, I had 3 names that were written on my sheet, and I just went off of those names. Okay. Consider for action a resolution providing for the acceptance and execution of the contract to accept the bid for the installation of a concrete trail in the Radium Springs area for the lowest responsible and responsive bidder meeting specifications and accepting potential award HTS Construction out of Albany, Georgia in the amount of $332,669.44, subject to execution by the county administrator. The award includes the base bid in addition of items 25A and 26A. Funding is budgeted in the SPLOST 5 and SPLOST 7. Assistant County Administrator, Mr. Addison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. This section of trail actually picks up from the Radium Springs Gardens. It will connect to the trail installed at Skywater under the recent road improvement projects. It'll go from there and connect to the trailhead, and from the trailhead on over to the pond. It's a little bit over 1 mile of trails, and we recommend approval. There were 7 bids received, and 1 was rescinded, and we recommend approval of this bid. Thank you.
Okay, is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Is second?
Second.
All right, motion is second. Any discussion? There being none, we'll call the matter for a vote. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion
Aye.
carries. Motion carries unanimously. Consider for action a resolution providing for the acceptance of the task order to perform the design, construction documents, and construction administration needed for the scale replacement project at the landfill with the current vendor, Atlantic Coast Consulting out of Savannah, Georgia, in the amount of $41,900, subject to the execution by the county administrator. Funding is budgeted in the solid waste capital outlay. Mr. Addison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This task order is under our general consulting services agreement with Atlantic Coast Consulting for the landfill. They're an engineer of record. Our scales are original to the site now. They're underground. We're having issues with stability and accuracy. They need to be redesigned. These will be moved above ground for ease of maintenance and accuracy adjustments. So we recommend approval of this design portion. We will bring back the actual construction portion once it's bid out. This company will also assist us with bid documents and construction oversight. Thank you.
Very good. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? There being none, we'll call the matter for a vote. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Consider for action a resolution providing for the acceptance of the statement of work to perform the human resources and finance end of year updates needed for the J.D. Edwards system with the current vendor BRIJ, our bridge out of Greensboro, North Carolina. The estimated amount of $44,100 subject to the execution by the county administrator. Funding is available in SPA 6 Information Technology. Mr. Addison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This project is needed. We are currently in a transition phase from J.D. Edwards system to a Tyler Technologies Munis system. However, due to the overlap in calendar and fiscal years and the transition process, we need to upgrade JD1 so that we can get out the mandatory information out of it to complete our records.
Is there a motion?
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman. Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? There being none, we'll call the matter for a vote. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Consider for action the resolution declaring the listed vehicles and equipment as surplus and authorizing the sale of same via an online action. Mr. Addison?
Thank you. This is a standard action for equipment that has reached the end of its life cycle or have been replaced. We recommend approval.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? There being none, we'll call the matter for a vote. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Mr. McCoy?
Yes, sir. I would like to remind the board that we will not be having a meeting next Monday due to a holiday, Labor Day holiday. And I also want to say rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman.
Can't hear you, Mr. McCoy.
We will not be having a meeting next Monday due to the Labor Day holiday. And I said rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman.
Oh.
All right. Very good. Mr. Lee?
Nothing, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. Just an announcement, Commissioner Johnson will serve as the Daugherty County voting delegate for the ACCG 2020 business session. That's been communicated to Commissioner Johnson. I want to publicly thank Commissioner Johnson for him agreeing to serve in that capacity and represent us very well. Thank you, Commissioner Johnson.
Not a problem, sir.
All right. In light of that, Commissioner Johnson, do you have anything?
I have nothing further, sir, other than I want to thank Commissioner Gaines and Commissioner Edwards for the community village project they've been doing in the past couple of months. The mass giveaway and the community cleanup are impressive ways to get our community involved. Thank you guys for that hard work.
Very good. Thank you. Commissioner Gaines?
Yes, please. I'd just like to express my gratitude to Phoebe Putney Hospital for the donation of the masks. It was an extremely successful day on Saturday. People were lined up from 8 o'clock in the morning to receive those masks. So thanks to Phoebe. And also thanks to the Southwest Georgia newspaper and to the Second Mount Zion Youth Ministry for doing the hard work of getting them out.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner Gaines. Commissioner Jones?
Nothing, sir. Enough done been said.
Very good. Commissioner Edwards?
Nothing, sir.
Commissioner Gray?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. One thing, based on citizen requests, I'd like to ask you for permission to allow Mr. McCoy to put in a request to do a traffic study on Philema Road to see about increasing the speed limit in the Daugherty County portion back up to 55 miles an hour.
Amen.
To have some continuity between Lee County and Daugherty County, and then potentially address the city about increasing theirs as the traffic patterns and businesses along
May
there have
decrease
changed.
revenue, but I understand.
Yes.
Yeah, we've all been pulled over there. Thank you very much, Commissioner Gray. Commissioner Hudgens?
Not a thing, Mr. Chairman. If you drive the speed limit, you don't get tickets.
I understand. Very good. Commissioner Edwards, did I call on you already? Okay. Thank you. Reminder, we have training following this meeting for the county administrator evaluation training, which we as a board requested and commissioned ourselves so that we can make sure that we approach the evaluation of the county administrator in a uniform way. And so we have training that has been scheduled following this meeting that will be conducted by the Human Resources Department. And I look forward to seeing everyone there via Zoom or what other device they so choose. Thank you all. We're adjourned.
Is there a call-in number for this?
Training, right?